The draft is coming up. Let's start breaking down Tigo's top 5 players at every position. Let's get into it.
Inside, and a beauty! Hall running free! Brees Hall inside the 10! He's gonna score!
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today is going to start the non-stop onslaught of draft content. We're going to be breaking down every position on the football field and my rankings of my top 5 guys. Now, remember that my rankings for certain positions, like positions that we don't need, like today's position, the quarterback, are just going to be what I think, in the sense of like, here are my top 5 quarterbacks in order, and here's why. But for like other positions where I look at maybe the Jets might need a player here, a great example of that would be like the offensive tackle. Those positional rankings are going to be more in the lines of what I feel the New York Jets rankings are going to be on these players. And again, why? But today we're going to be starting with the quarterbacks. We're going to go quarterbacks today, wide receivers tomorrow, the backfield in the sense of like the running backs and the fullbacks the day after that. Then we're going to go tight ends, centers, guards, offensive tackles before switching to the defensive side of the ball. And then we're going to go defensive ends, interior defensive linemen, linebackers, safeties, and then we're going to end it right before the draft with cornerbacks. It's going to be a blast, but let's start with the quarterbacks. This quarterback class is going to be very interesting when you look at the volatility at the top of this class and what people are going to think of the quarterbacks. I'm about to get a lot of hate for my quarterback rankings in this class, but I believe in these quarterback rankings. I think this is the order that if I was going to be taking the quarterbacks, that I would have them going in if I was the GMs or if I was a head coach in the NFL. And let's start with the top with the number 1 guy on my board, CJ Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State. So if you guys see me looking off to the side, it's because that's where I have all my notes. They're off to the side, so I got to read them. When we look at his career as a quarterback, specifically in 2021 and 2022, they're very successful collegiate careers. And 2021 is a little bit inflated, in my opinion, when you look at his completion percentage, his yards, his touchdowns to interception ratio. Primarily because he had 3 first-round wide receivers that he was throwing to. It was Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. And it's crazy to think that, with that, going from his year 1 in 2021, which was his first year as a quarterback, into year 2, he was able to keep up that pace. Yes, the completion percentage went down to about 66%, which is average. That's what you want out of your quarterback. But to keep up the same touchdown-interception ratio, almost the same, he threw 3 less touchdowns in 2022 than he did in 2021 at 41-6. Just absolutely phenomenal. There are a couple of questions that you have about his games and his ability, especially transitioning from 2021 to 2022. In 2021, he was clutch when he needed to be, and he did all those things. But when you look at 2022, in big moments, he seemed to not live up to those moments, if that makes sense. It's one of those things where how much of his 2021 success and all of the things that he accomplished, how much of that was because he had 3 first-round wide receivers, and when you lose those guys and you don't have as good of a talent there as you did before, how much does that matter? The other thing that I think a lot of people are going to talk about is his, ability to move and create and extend plays. I think people tend to look at CJ Stroud as a true pocket passer, and I just don't know if that's true. Yes, in the pocket, he is probably one of the faster processors, and he can evaluate and diagnose a defense and get the ball out quickly, efficiently, accurately, and doing all of those things, right? But I think the biggest thing is that I think he has the ability to extend plays, but playing at Ohio, he was very rarely asked to. And so when he gets to the NFL, and probably is going to be going to a team where he's not going to be protected that well, because I expect him to be the first quarterback taken off the board, and you're going to a bad team in that situation. When you look at that, I think he has that ability. He just never really had to use it. And worst case scenario, I think he can learn that ability. I think he's more than athletic enough. And then the last thing is just an average arm, right? He's got a good enough arm to be able to hit every level that you need, but he doesn't have a cannon like you like seeing on some quarterbacks in the new age of evaluating quarterbacks. But that's my quarterback number 1, CJ Stroud of Ohio State. We're going on to my quarterback number 2, and I think for me, it's Will Levis, the quarterback out of Kentucky, is my quarterback number 2. I think he is one of the most athletic guys in this draft. When you look at the quarterback position, he's only behind one guy, but that guy's a freak of an athlete, and we'll get to him later. And when you look at the things that he was asked to do at Kentucky and the program that is Kentucky, he wasn't put in the best position to really excel or shine. But when you look at his fundamentals as a thrower of the football, the guy's got an absolute cannon of an arm on his shoulder. I think he can throw from end zone to end zone. Like, I think honestly he can throw end zone to end zone. The amount of pressure that he faced in 2022 was just absolutely insane. The kid was running for his life, and he was unfazed in the face of pressure. And the ability to throw from any arm angle from any platform is only a benefit to him. If you would have put Will Levis on an Alabama team or that Georgia team or even the Ohio State teams with those receivers, I think he would be the number 1 quarterback in this draft, hands down. I love this kid's talent, and I love this kid's ability. Now, am I scared about his transition to the next level? Absolutely. And this is Will Levis is a clear case of a quarterback that obviously probably needs to sit year 1. If there's any prospect that's going to be given like a Zach Wilson type of grade, like, it's Will Levis. Will Levis has all of the measurables and the talent in the world, just probably needs to sit year 1. And so you hope that that's the system and the scheme that whoever takes him does that. I look at like the Raiders and the Colts as a great place for that, because the Colts have Gardner Minshew, and they could run Gardner Minshew for 10 weeks if need be. They're not going to be competitive with Will Levis or Gardner Minshew. So, like, do the right thing and develop your quarterback, and Steichen is a guy who knows how to do that. The Raiders, while I don't believe in McDaniels at all, they have Jimmy G, so there's no pressure to start Will Levis early. And so those are the teams that I would love to see go after a Will Levis. And because I think if you give him that year, I think it's the same thing that would have happened to Zach, right? But like, if you give Will the year to sit behind a veteran, really understand and learn the NFL speed and the NFL game, I think he has the opportunity to be a really good quarterback in this NFL. And speaking of the guy who's out of this world athletic, quarterback number 3 on the board for me, Anthony Richardson. The guy is a rocket ship when you look at his athleticism, his arm talent, his escapability, everything. The guy is built to honestly play tight end at the next level. 6'4", 230. Like, if he fails as a quarterback, like, this is the guy who comes in and can probably play tight end at the next level. He is, like I said, he's just a rocket ship. He is absolutely explosive in everything that he does. Now, a lot of the concerns with him are going to be with his fundamentals. Specifically, his lower half is something that I have a problem with. His feet are a little bit erratic and static. His hips aren't necessarily attached to his shoulders, and like, his front foot placement is a little bit off. Now, the good thing is that the right quarterback coach and the right staff can fix those problems. It's not like he has a bad throwing motion or something like that, like we've seen with other prospects in the past. That's not the problem with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is the small, minute details of the quarterback positions, and you can fix those things. And again, Anthony Richardson is a guy who probably needs to sit behind a quarterback, ideally for 2 years, is what I would do. He he's young enough to where you're not worried about that kind of problem. And I think that the accuracy issues are a little bit overblown. If you watched any of the Florida football games last year, they weren't a good football team, like at all. So this expectation that he was going to be a wildly accurate quarterback, I think is just false. Just don't think it's true. But I think the biggest thing is his limited experience. So drafting him to a team like Seattle makes a ton of sense. They have Geno there for a long time. They can sit Anthony Richardson and really develop him into the quarterback that I think that he can be. Moving on to number 4, we go to Bryce Young, the quarterback out of Alabama. And here's the thing with Bryce Young. My problems with Bryce Young have absolutely nothing to do with the player. He is off of the charts when you look at how good and athletic he is at the college level. He can make every throw that you need him to. He can stand in the pocket. He can escape and throw on the run and move, and he's insanely athletic. The problem all come with his size. At 5'10" and a quarter and playing at like 180 pounds, it's hard. It's hard for me to put my faith in a guy that's that small, that's that light. And then you take into consideration that, like, he did hurt his shoulder last fall. I don't think that that's an injury problem. But when you look at, like, how far back he needs to sit in the pocket to be able to operate in the middle of the field, it makes the job of an edge rusher a little bit easier because the tackles have to travel and take their edge guys so much farther back in pass protection sets that you can spin back in, you know, or spin out or do different things as an edge rusher and create pressure and even get sacks. And then the question comes, well, when he gets hit by a guy who's got 6, 7, 8 inches on him, that has 120 pounds on him, how is he going to handle that? I really do have a concern about his durability at the next level. And again, if we were talking about a guy that was 6 foot, 210 pounds, he'd be the number 1 quarterback on my board. But he's not. He's 5'10". He plays at $180, which means during the season he's probably playing at $175. That's really small, and he looks small. And in the SEC, where we see some of these bigger, bulkier defensive fronts, he looks tiny out there. And so I have a massive concern about his size. I have no concerns about his playing ability. I think the guy's electric. But when you're that small, you have to fall down the board because I'm going to take my pick with guys that I think that can have long careers in the NFL. And so Bryce Young is quarterback 4. And now going on to quarterback 5 in the draft, and that is the quarterback out of UCLA, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. DTR is an interesting prospect when you look at him, overall, because he's a really, really polarizing prospect in the same way that like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson are, but I think even more. And I think it's really funny because like after you get to the top 4 guys who are all considered first-round talents by a large majority of the NFL, you really have a hard fall off. And I almost thought about not picking a 5th guy, but I thought it would be fun just because a lot of people have fun picking who the 5th guy is. And taking a flyer on a guy like DTR, not for the Jets, but like as a team, if you've got an aging quarterback or if you've got an unwary situation at quarterback and maybe you can use an upgrade or bring in some competition, DTR is probably the guy to do it. He can throw the ball hard. He can go through his progressions really, really quickly. He's unwavering in his ability to like escape the pocket and create and get yards after the play and to do all of that stuff. And I think this is another one of those situations where his statistics suffered from UCLA kind of just being a bad program last year and just not being all that great and not having all of these weapons. But again, he does have things that he needs to work on. It seems like he kind of only really has a fastball when it comes to his throwing. Really inaccurate and just has a hard time judging it, I guess would be when it comes to like throwing the ball with touch and just finesse. And then the other part is like his throwing motion isn't that great. Like he really has to load up to get the ball deep. Even though he can get the ball deep, he really has to load up when it comes to getting the ball deep. The craziest thing is I have him as quarterback 5 in this draft, and I have like a 4th round grade on him. I don't see a quarterback that's worth taking in the 2nd or the 3rd round, and I think the first quarterback that should come off after the first 4 go should probably be either DTR or Tanner Mackey of Stanford, and those are both guys that I have like 4th round grades on. So it's really, really interesting. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below when it comes to these quarterback prospects. Do you love them? Do you hate them? Tell me why in the comment section below. And last but not least, go Jets.